How about that thunderstorm last night?
It's pretty crazy. Got lightning pretty close to the house. Maybe jump up out the couch.
Our operations folks, they were busy the last
Yes.
few nights with some outage. Anytime you have those storms come through, Riley, you know from your years of being a lawn worker that just a little bit of wind blow those trees and branches around, and
Oh, yeah.
suddenly you have a big tree that falls over.
Yep, always that mysterious tree that you just don't think would come over it. It falls down.
Well, welcome back to Behind the Lines. I'm James Taylor, and to my left is Conni Tucker. We're the communications team here at Central, and this is the podcast where we kind of pull back the layers of the co-op. Obviously, we're just kind of talking about outages and how busy we've been on that front, which that's what our members and kind of community know us by, the bucket trucks and restoring power, the big trees, bringing lines down. But there's so much more to the co-op, the community aspect and the service aspect, providing that service to our members when they call in. They may have questions about their account, or what we're going to talk about today, questions about energy use. And it's such an appropriate time of the year to be talking about that. The weather has been extremely hot, but even not just when it's really hot outside. On the flip side, in just 6 months, it's going to be really cold. And so energy use fluctuates back and forth, really driven by the weather. But we're super excited to have two members of our energy services team to chat with us today to kind of give us the ins and outs of what energy use does during the year, during those extreme temperatures, and what members can do to manage their energy use and hopefully save a little money. But we'll go ahead and jump in. We have Steven, Albert, and Ryley Osentoski with us today. And I'll go ahead and kind of jump into the first question, and probably the question we hear most often. So Steven, I'll just start with you. You're directly in front of me, so
Yep.
you get to be lucky guest number one. When temperatures get really hot in the summer or really cold in the winter, why do we tend to see electric bills go up during those times of the year?
Mainly because it taxes your HVAC system a whole lot more, because you're just trying to keep your house cooler in the summer, especially when you get these 100-degree days, and you're trying to keep it cool. It's hard to fight that hot air and stuff like that. And the same thing in the wintertime. Especially in the wintertime, we seem to see a little bit more spike because it drops, and then you have your auxiliary heat and stuff that's kicking on. So that is even more of a spike when it comes to your electricity usage with that.
So what's kind of happening with your heat pump when it gets really hot outside or really cold? So what's kind of driving the heat pump to use more energy during those times?
Well, like in the summertime, it's trying to expel the heat from the house. So it's the way it works is it has the gas system inside the HVAC, and like in the summertime, it's trying to pull the hot air out and expel it to the outside and get that refrigerant back into the house to cool the house. And it's a reverse cycle with a heat pump that has a reversing valve in there. In the wintertime, it has a reverse cycle. So it's pulling warm air out of the outside air, believe it or not, in the winter to bring it into the house to warm the house and expel that cold air back outside. And that's the extreme in the winter. When it gets below like 30, it really can't pull. Most HVAC systems can't pull enough warm air out of the outside air. So that's when your auxiliary heat comes on and off. But that's what's happening with that.
One thing you mentioned is temperature. So moving that air inside and out, and when it gets to a certain point when it's too cold outside, it can't keep up. So there's a direct connection between energy use, how hard your HVAC unit is working, whether it's in the summer or in the winter. If it can't keep up, those auxiliary heat strips come on. So there's a direct connection between outdoor temperatures and energy use. Ryley, I'll throw this one to you. How much of the home's typical energy use is spent heating and cooling?
That's probably your majority. I mean, if you want to probably look at it, probably put a percentage, it could be anywhere from 40 to 60%, most of the time. Just because, I mean, AC is going to run, heat's going to be on. May not notice it. Yeah, you're sleeping, it's still going to be on and stuff like that too. You're not at the house, it's still going to be running. After that, it's going to be, trickle down effect of how your dryer is, or your hot water heater, or how much you cook. Those are going to be your big stuff. If you got LED lights and smart TVs, they don't really pull a whole lot. So when you kind of look at that aspect too, in most houses, the shoulder months, what we call it, March, end of March, April, beginning of May, and October and November, you kind of see your usage go down, and that's kind of like your base level because your heat's not on that much, or your AC is not on. So you kind of look at those months as well, like, oh, my power bills, my usage really dropped down, and that's the result of it because temperatures outside are better. So as far as like summer and winter time, yeah, hot outside. Your AC, even in my house with programmable thermostat, I can see how many hours mine runs. So yeah, there are times mine runs 20 hours in a day. It's a lot of using some usage. So that's where you can kind of see how that works as far as all that.
And to highlight one thing you said, that the energy use goes up and down in the year. So certain periods where it's going to be higher, and then certain periods, shoulder months, when it's going to be lower, and that directly correlates with the electricity bill as well. So sometimes during those times of the year, we start getting more calls, which is expected and normal. People are kind of seeing their bill go up and want to make sure that everything's okay, and so it's not necessarily a sign that there's always something wrong in the home. It trends with the temperatures. So it's normal and expected to see that rise and fall of the bill during the year because your energy use is going up and down.
Yeah, I was thinking, sometimes we get frustrated because we think, I haven't done anything differently, right? Like, I'm doing the same things I always do. Why is it going up and down? But it's not that. It's those external kind of forces, and it's working so hard. And I was thinking about and reading an article recently about, in the South, we also have to deal with the humidity in the summer. Yes. And how that plays into the hard work that it's doing. And then it doesn't cool down at night. So you never have that break. It's like you said, 20 hours of working, that AC is working.
Yeah. So the AC is also not only trying to put cold air in the house and, getting that hot air out, but it's also trying to pull that humidity. Mm-hmm. So while it's trying to do all that, so sometimes it may not seem like it always working good in your house, pulling, the AC doesn't seem like it because it's also got to pull that humidity out.
Right.
So it's kind of got to do that with everything too. So so they can run a lot longer.
Yeah. So we can't control the weather as much as we wish we could, but there are things we can control when it comes to our energy use and our energy efficiency. So if someone wanted to do whatever they could to lower their energy bill without making a huge investment, so what are some, where should they start? What are some simple things? And I'll start with you, Ryley. What are some, you mentioned the programmable thermostat that you have in your home. Is that a good place to start? Where are some places they could start?
Yes, a programmable thermostat. I've had mine installed since 2019, and I love it. It gives me how many hours my heat pump runs. I get a email every month, but also now that, but learning it more, I can get up-to-date ones quicker. But it tells you how many hours it runs. It can show you how much your heat strips come on, and all that kind of stuff. So, that's valuable information. So like we talk about, different types of the year where the usage and stuff like that. So like summertime, in a month's time, in like July, my heat pump might run for like 400 hours. But come October, it might run 60 hours. So that you can physically see that by the apps, by these smart thermostats. That's what's really nice about them. And they can also give you sometimes a warning. Some of them do, like, hey, something ain't right, I've run too long. So all that stuff is very good information for anybody to have those kind of things. Setting a schedule up, you always hear that, keep it one temperature and it's always good, which typically it is, but mine goes up and down. Mine fluctuates. I do different things. I pre-cool my house in the early morning, so hopefully it goes longer in the daytime to maybe noon, 1 o'clock in my house, but there's probably other houses that are better insulated that could probably maybe go longer. I mean, just doing things like that can help out.
So things like if you're not home.
Yeah, if you're not home, having the blinds down as well, having some good blinds, keep that sun out. And then the wintertime is different. Have those blinds up, let that sun come in because it does help out. Firsthand done at my house. My heat pump went out in 2020 in December. No, actually November. I got it fixed in December. Having those blinds open did help out, and so that does play a role. And also having the way your temperatures do in your house, like with the schedule on your thermostat, can help out a lot.
Steven, what would you say if somebody said, "Where can I start? I don't want to buy a whole new HVAC, but what could I do?"
Well, you can also start with caulking around windows and sealing around windows and that kind of stuff. Weather stripping doors and stuff like that. Just look for, if you can look at a door and see any kind of light from the inside out, you can see light coming in, that needs to be sealed, because all it's doing is just pulling in not only hot or cold air, it's pulling in dust and dirt and all that other stuff too when it's running. Sealing any kind of crack you can see. Can lights, they pull in. If they're not sealed properly, a lot of hot and cold air can come in through those. Any little thing like that.
I hadn't thought about those. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. One thing that I don't think, so those are practical things that people can do, run out and buy a thing of caulk and get busy.
Yep.
But one thing people don't think about with regard to what we provide are some of the online tools that we can provide that are right at their fingertips anytime they, want to get more information. Yeah. And one of those is our Energy Advisor tool. Can you tell us, Steven, what that is and why members should be using it?
What it is it's a tool that you go in and you can put in your member number for you specifically, your address, and you can go through and select how much insulation you have for your walls, your roof, your floor, how many refrigerators you have, how many stoves, whatever appliances you have, whether you have a pool, hot tub, this, that, what type of HVAC system you have. I mean, it's very detailed. And then it will give you a report at the end as to what most of your usage is going for. And most of them, it does come out to their HVAC 90% of the time. And it will give you hints and stuff at the end. Hey, you can do this to help lower your energy usage, or you can do this. It gets down to what type of windows you have in your house. It's very detailed. So if you wanted to take the time to say, hey, what can I do? Go in there, just plug in your information. 5 minutes, you have a whole report of what your usage is going for.
Nice. What other tools do we have available?
Tools?
Or things people can do, I guess, in their portal? Or
Yeah. Well, we have rebates for HVAC systems, heat pump water heaters. We have rebates for those. For the HVAC, if you get a new one installed, you have to have a 15.2 SEER tube or better system to qualify. And it's a $200 rebate, but $200 is $200.
Right.
So you just go in there and fill out your stuff, provide your paperwork from the HVAC company, and I process the paperwork, and we'll cut you a check. Same thing with the heat pump water heater.
Okay. One thing I think, we've talked about this before on the podcast, and I actually had someone reach out to me after that to ask more about it, is our energy alerts. Whether the member, I guess the member can set those up for themselves, which I'll let you guys tell us about in a minute. But then also we look at members' usage on a regular basis. And if something seems high or unusual, sometimes we reach out proactively.
Yes.
But how does that work? Ryley, can you speak to that?
So as far as like setting up an alert, I believe our member service can kind of maybe recommend a number, or the member can kind of be like, hey, look, if I get over 80 kilowatt hours in a day's time, I want an alert sent to me.
Okay.
Which, I mean, that's probably a good rough number probably to maybe start with, depending on the house and depending on their usage and stuff like that. So, I mean, you kind of set it up to how you want to do things. Like,
Right.
or you can just have it set up, get an alert every day. I believe you could. Then there's another way of doing that, an alert, to where they can kind of see what they're using from time to time. Or you can also go on the portal and look at your usage that way as well. And you can also, most of the accounts on the portal, if you actually click on that day where you get to the graph, you actually click on it, you can actually see your 15-minute interval data. So you can kind of see what you're doing, how your house is doing every 15 minutes.
That's amazing. And I know I don't look at it at that level, but if I took the time, I would probably learn quite a bit about habits and patterns and usage and where all that goes. And so a member can set that up for themselves, but we also have people looking at that and looking for anomalies. And when things do show up that are out of the norm for that particular member, reach out proactively to make sure something's not broken or, there's not something else going on.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's, our billing department, they look at unusual high monthly bills.
Right.
So we might not catch it right away, but as far as like a monthly type thing, if it's not adding up to like what it was last year or something like that, we get notified and make phone calls out. And then Steven does even a step more. I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah. We have a proactive thing like it's checked daily, or every other day or something like that. And it can actually see if your usage jumps from your normal to the next day, like twice or much, like 100% more than the day before. And we'll normally kind of let it ride for like a day or two, just see if it was just like a one-day anomaly. But once it gets like 2 or 3 days, kind of want to call because something's wrong. Matter of fact, I talked to a lady this morning. The past 3 days, she's been over 300 kilowatt hours every day. And what it was, based on looking at her usage, her heat strips were stuck on in the summertime, fighting with her HVAC, and it was 300 plus kilowatt hours for the past 3 days. So doing that really helps the member catch, so they can get a HVAC company out there to look at their system.
I bet she was really glad to get your phone call.
Yes.
And that's a great service. And you probably have countless stories that you could talk about on how those, looking at that data and seeing those anomalies, that you seeing when the energy use spikes up and stays up. Yeah. Just kind of looking at that, having someone put their eyes on it is
Mm-hmm.
critical. Helping our members get ahead of some of those issues or catch them early on. Yeah. Not necessarily because something like that, obviously the issue would have happened regardless, but then being able to call the member and say, hey, you might want to take a look at this, and then it kind of helps it stop it in the tracks.
Yes.
And I want to highlight two things. We talked about the portal. We use this quite a bit in our communications that we push out to, but when you go into the portal, you can look at the energy use graph. So it takes your energy use, puts it in a bar graph, and then you can kind of notice some trends. But the tool that I like the most with that energy use graph is being able to overlay it with the temperatures. So there's a line graph that you put in over the top of it, and you can see the trends of the temperature following, or in the winter the energy goes up and the temperature line goes down.
Right.
So just being able to kind of watch those trends, but then you can also on your own possibly notice, hey, something might not be right here.
Right.
If the temperature was high and then went back down and your energy use stays up, there might be something going on there. And just kind of looking at all that, they're great tools. And and I mentioned the communication side. We use that as a way to kind of communicate that to our members to show how the temperatures are impacting energy use. But our newsletter, we push out an email today that directed to our website page with some different tools and kind of explaining how the temperature impacts your energy use and things you can do. Some of those tips that you were mentioning earlier, pushing some of that out. So, some other things that the co-op is doing. But online tools are really useful, but sometimes, when you get your bill, even though it's been a little warmer, it can kind of catch you off guard a little bit. So you might have questions. That's completely normal. And I actually spent the first half of my career in our member service department. And, that's the front line where a member calls in, they may have a question about their energy use or their bill. And so the member service rep will kind of speak to them a little bit and answer any questions. But if it gets to a certain point or they look at it and say, something may be going on here, that's where you guys come in.
Right.
They send them over to the experts to look at the energy use. So when, a member has that question or something may be going on, what kind of assistance do the two of you provide to our members, and what do you kind of see when someone has those high energy use questions? I'll start with you, Steve.
Well, first we pull up their data and just kind of do an in-depth dive of their data and look at their usage and just kind of see, based on our knowledge of how many watts each appliance pulls or this or that, and just look at the times of the day and when something's running, so we can kind of dive deep into what we're looking at to give them an explanation of what it could be. I found everything, just kind of looking at her usage, from wells to heat pumps to, water heater leaks. Cause you can, like if a well running or a water heater leak, you can kind of just see it daily. If you look at that 15-minute graph, you can see it pop up for a little bit and drop right back down and kind of do that. Or if it's like a heat pump issue, you can look at that graph and kind of see it's kind of flat for the most part if it's a constant issue, or if it's, real high and then drops back down real low, it's kind of a heat pump issue. So we can kind of, with our knowledge of the wattage of what everything pulls, it kind of gives us a heads up as to what could be using the usage.
Sometimes you go out into the field. Like if there's something you might not be able to diagnose from or over the phone, you may go out to the member's home. Ryley, you've been out to members' homes before. What are some of the things that you see kind of out in the field in terms of like HVAC issues or things that you've seen that, you find out in the field?
So I've had some that gone out there and, hey, I've done nothing wrong or done nothing different. Had a brand new heat pump put in, and we've gone out there and heat strips, wintertime, heat strips are stuck on. Brand new units. So just because it's brand new doesn't mean anything. It's still an issue can happen. Another one went out to another house, same thing, heat pump, been in a couple months. And got there and one of the units was frozen up, and the other unit was stuck in what they call what's that mode?
Defrost?
Yeah, defrost mode. Was stuck in that, so it was bringing down those heat strips on and off, and it was stuck in that mode. So he said, I wasn't doing anything different, and you weren't. It was just your heat pumps were messed up, not working properly. And that's what we get those a lot too. They just didn't know. See a lot of filters, return filters for your house, clogged up. Just filled with dog hair. Anything else haven't been changed out in several months, or maybe not even ever. In some cases, but. One thing that a lot you hear about with the filters as well is oh, I got to get the best of the line and stuff like that. And a lot, we talk to enough heating and air companies and stuff like that. A lot of the systems aren't built for those. And a lot of times they say, just buy the cheap ones, change them out every month. Buy the cheapest ones you can find, change them out every month because they're cheap. And they don't restrict the airflow from inside your house back to the unit. And that's what it's all about, is you want that flow to be good. So changing them out regularly. One thing that was stuck to me by the one who trained me was, when you get your power bill in, change your filter. So that was kind of always a good thing. I've kind of still say it to this day. Anybody that asks, yeah, do that. Also, still with the portal, go on there once a week. Maybe once a week, just check out your usage. See how that works with the trend of the heat and the cold, temperatures and stuff like that, and see how your house is reacting. Just see how your usage is too. That way you can catch something quicker. We might not catch it everything all the time. Maybe you might catch it before we do. Yeah, hot water heater leaks, wells, like he said. Windows, even like door windows, like on your front door. Some of those windows are, I hate to say, a couple times been busted out. And it's got cardboard up. Well, that's not going to protect anything that good either. Still a few places has furnaces. So furnaces like having heat strips on all the time. So those are just sometimes a nightmare. And insulation. Seen insulation underneath some houses completely gone. So that's got to get replaced. I think that'd be about it, really.
Those are great tips. And, to kind of shift gears, sometimes you mentioned purchasing a new HVAC unit. We have some programs at the co-op, and Steven, you mentioned rebates. Yeah. So we have a comfort loan program that you can apply for, and it goes through Electel Federal Credit Union, and it's a loan to help you replace your HVAC. But then we also have rebates for heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. If you purchase a heat pump or a heat pump water heater at certain levels, certain energy efficiency levels, and you can go through our website and get all the information on each of those programs. But would you give any advice to anyone when they're going and purchasing a heat pump or a water heater? What would you tell them?
As far as heat pumps, I would get at least 5 quotes, just because I see that wide of a range and prices from different companies. I've seen a couple companies, same exact system, 2 different members, totally different prices. So get multiple quotes. I would say at least 5. Unless you're someone that's real comfortable with, your HVAC company or something like that. But for the most part, I would get 5 at least, because just the price range is so great. And with as expensive as they are nowadays, definitely get as many quotes as you can. Water heaters, it's about even across the board there, from one plumbing company to the next. Is when it comes to putting in water heaters and stuff like that, I don't see that much great of a difference in their pricing there. So that would be mine. And then do your research on what you're expecting out of it too. Don't just go with what meets the code. If you want a little bit better efficiency, you can kind of stay in between that 15 to 18 SEER and there. That's kind of your energy efficiency. Once you get above 18, that's more for comfort, not so much on the efficiency side. There's also some cool new technology out there, cold climate heat pumps. And those are what I've seen so far, a couple of studies. Those are where it's at, especially for the wintertime. Because what it does is allow your heat pump to run down to like 0 degrees outside before the heat strips will kick on. But if you go that route, you need to make sure that when they install it, that they turn the heat strips down to come on at that temperature, because a lot of them will still set it up to like 30 degrees for your heat strips to come on. And they're designed for like 0 to -5 degrees.
And heat strips are expensive.
Yes, very expensive.
Just to be clear.
Yes.
Before we start kind of concluding, I have some, like a little lightning round for us. So I'm going to give you a statement and you just say yes or no, or true or false, or myth, or whatever. The first answer that comes to mind. And we've already talked about this first one, but smart thermostat, worth it or not?
Yes.
If you set it up properly.
Okay. Yep. Yes, if you set it up properly.
If you set it up properly.
Okay.
If you're going to get one of those, yes.
Yeah.
You know, find a schedule that's going to work for you. You know, one temperature all the time it's good, but you can save more by having different temperatures throughout the day.
Right.
And at nighttime and stuff like that, it can work.
So you have to read the manual, set it up.
It's not really reading the manual. Like, I did it just because I'd seen something one day. Had a guy call me up, one of our members called me up at like 11 o'clock at night. I was like, man, why am I getting a phone call at 11 o'clock at night? And I was trying to help him out with his heat pump. And he had a reset button, so he had to do that again. And I looked at my usage and my stuff, and I was like, why did my heat pump run, 13 hours, I think it was, or 15 hours long, and nobody was home? I was gone that weekend. And I looked at it, so the next weekend was almost like identical temperatures. I'd set a schedule up. It ran 3 hours less by just doing a schedule, just doing a simple schedule. I've changed it and tweaked it since then. But yeah, so finding out what's going to work for you and stuff like that is key.
Right. Trying some things,
Yeah.
checking the data, see if it made a difference.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next, biggest energy saving myth that you hear.
They sell these things that you plug into your recips that are supposed to balance your electricity and save. I've had several members call me, said I bought these things and plugged them in, and it no different in my uses. It's actually increasing your usage because it's using electricity for a little green light on the front of that box for them. So I've seen that several times.
Right.
I would say another one would be, I don't know if it's not really a big one, but ceiling fans. Having them run all the time, it's not really, you have to run them all the time because your heat pump should be doing that for you. It's more of making it comfortable in the room when you're in there. That's why you want to turn them on then.
Right.
That's what that's mainly for. Instead of having them on all the time and thinking it's doing, I mean, it may, but it's also using electricity at the same time.
Right. All right. One thing everyone should do before the next, well, we've got kind of two options, like before it gets really, really hot. So when you're going into the summer, what's one thing they should do? Or conversely, like before we're going to start heading into the fall, what's one thing somebody could do before it starts? We hit that really cold weather in December, January.
Summertime, if you have a way to get blinds or something to put up to kind of block the heat and stuff coming in, service your unit, get your unit serviced, clean coils and stuff on it. That really helps for both sides as far as that, winter and summer, cleaning it, getting it serviced.
I'll have to say, and I've done it in person myself because my windows aren't that great either, is put the film that you can buy at Lowe's, put the film trim around where you double sticky tape around your frame and put that film up, and then a blow dryer or a heat gun and kind of get it nice, and it does help. It's actually, I still have it on my windows, but my cats tear it up, so it don't work no more for me. I can't do that.
Most overlooked energy user in the home. Like we've talked about HVAC, the obvious ones. What's something that's overlooked that uses a lot of energy, do you think?
Water heater would be the next one. And when I get dryer.
And the dryer.
And
how many loads you doing?
I've had several members that have put in electric tankless water heaters. that right there is killer electricity. That's like 27,000 watts
Okay.
for an electric tankless water heater. So if you want to go tankless, propane's the way to do it. But that's a big one.
Okay.
And what about the dehumidifiers underneath houses?
Oh,
That's another one that'll get you too, that you don't realize, is if they're clogged or they're not working properly, they'll stay on and run all the time. And how many watts are those things again?
they're like 2 to 4, I think, depending on what size you like. The one couple we found, they've had 2 underneath the house, and they were like 2,000 watts a piece, if I remember right.
Yeah,
Off the
so
top of my
that's
head, yeah.
48 kilowatt hours a day.
Yep.
I'm gonna
For
throw one in
one.
there. Kids at home in the summertime. If you don't know it, adjusting the thermostat.
Playing video games all day.
Like,
What-
man, it's getting kind of hot in here, and they turn the thermostat all the way down.
That's
Not
where-
to say I didn't do it when I was growing up, but hey,
That's where the programmable or the smart thermostats are really nice, where you can lock those down. Where
there you go.
Then they can adjust to maybe a degree or two, and that's it. You give them a range, and that's all they can do. So yeah, you can lock those things down.
Well, I don't want to tell you how old I am, but when I go see my parents, my dad still won't let anybody touch the thermostat. Like,
Oh, nobody
hands
touches.
off.
Nobody touches in my house either. I got a schedule set up, and if I need to, I'll lock it back down again too.
all right, before we go, we've done this a lot, and you may be out of advice, but if you wanted to leave our members with, you've got the floor, you've got their attention. If you wanted to give them one piece of advice to kind of leave with today, like what's the one thing that you hope they remember from this podcast? Whoever wants to go first.
Pay close attention to what your house is doing all the way around, because every little thing you pay attention to makes a difference as to what, happens in your house as far as your electricity usage. Do some investigative work while you're, just take your time. You don't have to know everything, but just dig into it. Pay attention to what your house is doing. If something doesn't feel right, check into it.
Checking the portal. Go in there, checking your usage out. You know what you do in your house. Like you said, you know what you're doing. So you sit there and, you did laundry on Saturday or Sunday or anything that you did all your laundry those days. Well, you can go back and look and see what that did. And so that can kind of give you an idea like, hey, this is how much I'm doing with this. And right now, summertime, I would try to do it later in the evening, maybe only do a couple loads. It's not saving you energy per se, it's making your house feel good. So with the dryer on, you're pulling out anywhere around like 400 CFM. Like it's like a blower fan, like your exhaust fan in your bathroom. That's only 75 CFMs, most of them. So it's pulling out that air inside your house out. So your dryer's doing kind of the same thing as pulling your AC from in your house, warming it up, and then getting blown out of the house. So now your AC's got to try to come in and cover that. So doing it in a cooler time frame makes it feel more comfortable in your house than doing it in the dead heat of the day. That's just going to make your house even warmer.
Right.
all great advice. And I think that is what I was most excited about coming into this podcast episode. And then now that, we've kind of talked about all of it, there's so much practical advice that we were able to kind of talk about today for our members and community. Because, the reality is all of us during the summer and winter, we want to find ways that we can conserve energy and reduce our bills, right? Because that's us across the board. And I'll throw one last thing. I'll attest to the programmable thermostat. I was skeptical at first a few years ago when I went. I was like, is it worth the extra cost? But then when you see the amount of hours that your heat pump is running, I think Ryley, you mentioned that. I looked the other day, my heat pump ran for 16 hours during the day, which is just because it was really hot. It was 100 degrees outside. And when you're home, you don't really recognize that until you look at the data. And our portal can show all the energy used for your home, your home. But those thermostats show what your heat pump is actually doing. So I thought that was really great information for me in my home and trying to diagnose and figure out, you know, what may be going on at different times of the year. So
And I think it was, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was thinking back to our episode with Eddie Oldham, our CEO, and he was talking about how we're one of the few companies who try really hard to get you to use less of what we provide. So, you know, we work really hard to offer all these tips and services and answer questions and provide loans and rebates to help our members use less energy, which is what we're in the business of. But that's our job, is to make our members help them be more energy efficient and save them money when we can, which I think is amazing.
And a lot of it too is personal experiences. Right. So even at your own house, you know, I want to figure out why I'm using more power. So when you start going through all that stuff, and like I said, I found my tweak for my programmable thermostat, my schedule. It took me a couple of years, had to go 2 winters. It took me to figure out how I wanted to do it. It took me probably 2 or 3 summers to figure out what I can do in my house.
Get it exactly the way you want it.
Now, like your shoulder months, your spring and fall, the nicer temperatures, I would say you just gotta watch the weather, because your house is gonna, if you're not gonna get too hot out, if it's gonna, like my house, if it's gonna get 80 degrees that day, I'll pre-cool my house in the morning time and let it ride. I'll get my house down to, let's say 65 or 66 degrees in a short period of time, because it's colder outside. It's like 50 degrees in the morning, and I'll let it ride, and my house might get to 70 degrees that day, maybe. And so you did it for 2 hours instead of trying to leave that one temperature, and it's going with that, and your heat pump might run for 4 or 5 hours then. Yeah. I did mine in 2 hours and I'm done, or an hour and a half sometimes. Yeah. He's paying attention to the weather too.
Right.
Well, thank you to you both for jumping on here, talking about not only professional experience, seeing what you've seen in conversations with members and issues that you've seen in homes that people can take be aware of in their own home, but then also at our own homes and how we're kind of utilizing some of that. But if you have questions about your energy use, our website is a fantastic place to start. Looking through the portal, we've mentioned that several times, and our energy services team is always here to help if you have any questions. So again, thank you to you both. And signing off from Behind the Lines. Until next time.